Hey, everybody, this is Dennis Brown, former San Francisco 49er and Super Bowl champ. I'm here on the 49er Weekly Show, The Grueling Truth, with Dexter and Matt.
Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the 49ers Weekly Show on the Grueling Truth Radio Network, brought to you by Replenishing Technologies and MyBookie.ag. I'm your host, Matt Andruscavage, and I'd like to welcome in my co-host, former 49ers running back and Super Bowl 29 champion, Dexter Carter.
Hey, Matt, great to be with you again, man. Hey, the Grueling Truth, 49er Weekly Show, here we go again.
Yeah, it's always fun. It's something we look forward to every week. Always enjoy talking 49er football. It's just tough when the losses keep piling up, but we will talk about them.
And it is tough, but the one thing about it is nobody saw the season unraveling, not unraveling in a negative way, but I guess unfolding, I guess I should better say, the way it has. And the season has given me confidence, actually, in the future of the 49ers. But this Cowboy game kind of unraveled the way in which I expected in the beginning of the season. The Cowboys actually hadn't played as great as they expected this season. But this particular game here, you could see the strength that they have. And the score was pretty indicative of what I expected at the beginning of the season. So the Cowboys are becoming what the Cowboys should be, and the 49ers look a little bit more like I expected them to look. But again, prior to this game, gave me optimism, and I still have it, but it's our job to dissect and see where do we go from here.
Yeah, that's exactly how you got to look at it. When the season started, there were a lot of areas on paper that I thought the front office addressed. I thought that they made some good value free agent pickups. It's not easy to get free agent pickups to come to what looks like a struggling organization, just because guys want to win, and not everyone wants to be a part of a rebuild process. So you have to overpay for some guys, and try to put some things together. It was tough to just piece together a quarterback situation. So you could see all the things that they were trying to do in a very short period of time to get things to get going. And I thought that they did a good enough job to win some games this year. And early on in the season, it looked like that they could, 6-7 wins was a real possibility. I think it was very unrealistic to expect a 10-win season. But 6, 7, 8 wins max was probably where we were all looking. But once they started getting in these close games, even though they were losing, I think a lot of fans still felt like, hey, they're being very competitive. This is a bright spot. But then everything kind of crumbled this Sunday against Dallas.
Yeah, but the fans see what we see. The fans expected what we expected. Yeah, they were optimistic, as every fan that walks into Levis Stadium should be optimistic, but they knew what the Cowboys were bringing to town. So I think the reality set in after a certain point. And as you said, it's hard to lure free agents in right now to the Bay Area. But it's not the 49ers of 1994 when it was easy to lure, the big-time talent to come in because they wanted to be a part of the, a potential Super Bowl team. And I still have hope that the 49ers is a destination in the future that players are going to be in. I have hope also because something that you probably wouldn't even think that I would mention, but right now, Jacksonville, Florida, the free agents that they were able to lure in this year, this team that's helping them play as well as they're playing, especially on that defense, that wasn't a destination for a big-time free agent. But, money talks and a vision talks. And I think the 49ers are going to have salary cap room next year, and it's a destination with a stadium, a practice facility, and the area itself, San Francisco. I mean, and we're building this team, in my opinion, with big young talent. Now, there's moves that's got to be made. There's some young talent that's got to develop and develop quickly. But I believe it's happening. It's happening. We talked about the right people in the right places, the right spots, and able to identify talent, based on the vision of what the coaches want. And I still think all of that is there. So there's still a great a place in our lives, in our hearts, to be optimistic about the 49ers' future. Let's not judge it based on the beat by the Cowboys, because that was expected. Let's just hope that, the quarterback can keep developing. And we know, man, one of the biggest areas of development that's got to happen. We see glimpses of greatness, or at least positive movement, but it doesn't help when Reed is being moved from safety to linebacker. But that secondary is that one segment position that has got to improve, and, in my opinion, improve quickly.
Oh, no doubt about it. The secondary is the only way to fairly put it is secondary is kind of a mess. Rashard Robinson, what's frustrating about the league today is on my flight home from being at the game, somebody in the guy sitting in front of me had the live feed of the Monday Night Football game, and I saw a pass interference that if that had been Rashard Robinson, there'd have been 15 flags, but there was more contact than I've seen even he put on a receiver, and there's no flag. But he gets flagged constantly. He brushes a receiver, the flag is coming out. Dante Johnson is getting beat repeatedly, and I think there even seems to be miscommunication with the safeties. So there's just so many areas in the secondary that need to be cleaned up, and like you said, cleaned up quickly.
Right, and one thing about Robson, he's a good player. I see some great potential. I don't want him to get frustrated. Yes, he's going to hear us talk. He's going to, see the clippings in the newspaper. But you mentioned something interesting. You see technique and contact that he uses that isn't called in other games. That comes with experience and, I guess, the rite of passage. Because, how can I say it? I tell you what, Michael Jordan, and I'm surely not comparing him to Michael Jordan, but Michael Jordan earned calls, whether it was him on the defensive side or him on the offensive side. And it's the same thing in football. Patrick Peterson, Sherman, those guys can grab, tug, and they let them play.
Yeah.
But they've earned that. Robson, and we have to just be patient, because we don't want him to not do that and then sacrifice his development, because at some point it's going to start clicking consistently for him. And the refs are going to start respecting his game and stop listening to the whining of the receivers, because it's like on every play, a lineman can be called for holding.
Yeah.
A receiver or DB can be called for pass interference. It's just the way it is. So I think it's a rite of passage, and these veteran referees just have to continue to see them play, and they're going to have to continue being consistent in how they play.
Yeah.
And referees get used to it. So it's going to take some time, but he does have the potential to be a really good player.
Yeah, I agree with that. You look at him out there, there was a couple weeks in a row where I thought he had really good games, but this week against Dallas, in my opinion, as we break the game down a little bit, my opinion, he made a pretty good play on a third down, and it was just one of those calls that just went the other way. But there were times where I thought the defense really came out and played well. You look at the opening drive, the Niners defer, Dallas gets the ball, and it was very important to set the tone. Reuben Foster coming back, that energized the crowd. It was a little bit electric when he came out. Everybody kind of woke up and really cheered him on. It was really good to see. And they came out for the first drive, and there were two batted passes, DeForest Buckner on second down and third down, knock the passes down. And so you're thinking, all right, this is good. There's energy in the stadium. They get off the field. It's 3 and out. And then on the punt, Trent Taylor, who has had very good hands all season long, fumbles the ball. And it just set the tone for, you know, if you're going to play a team like the Cowboys, I think we talked about this last week, the only way you're going to win a game like that, or even be in a game like that, you have to play near perfect football. And Trent Taylor fumbling right out of the gate, and then later on 2 more fumbles. So being -3 in the turnover ratio, you can't win a game like that. You probably won't even compete in a game like that.
Yeah. And the one thing about the Cowboys, they haven't, scoring points hasn't been a problem for them. You know, now stopping teams has. Well, they didn't have a problem in any one of those areas, you know, against the 49ers. You know, big play, you know, came right before half when I forgot the defensive player's name, but caused the fumble on Dexter. You know, that was a big play, you know, for them, and obviously a big play for us the other way around. But you know, those kind of things just went the Cowboys' way. You know, they scored points and they did a good job stopping us from scoring points. And you know, we just have to figure out a way to turn that around and let that be us on a consistent basis. Because defense on a consistent basis, other than the very first game of the season with the Carolina Panthers and then the Cowboy game, they've done a good job of stopping people. So we're en route to doing the right things on a consistent basis from a defensive perspective. And we talked about our secondary not being close to what, you know, we need them to be. But the offense, you know, we got to, you know, start scoring enough points, you know, to help the defense out. And again, that's going to come with better talent, just more cohesive consistency from, you know, the players that are going to be with this team for some years. And the only thing that can heal that is time. And of course, working together and being, we're talking about Dexter, who, you know, this is his first game starting, so he's got to become consistent. But that comes with, you know, being familiar with your receivers, throwing to them, knowing who's going to be that guy when it's 3rd and 8. Who's going to be that guy who we know is going to make that play? So it's going to come to time.
Well, I'm going to say one more thing about the defense that I saw on Sunday. I think one thing that is probably might not be as noticed, what I saw on Sunday was a defense that was lacking leadership. And here's what I mean by that.
Interesting.
Here's what I mean by that. I do think that there is talent on the defense. I think we've seen it in the front 7. I'm not going to say that the management made a mistake with Navarro Bowman, because he's been beaten in coverage many times. He was pretty much a liability in coverage. We even saw that on Thursday Night Football when he was getting beat by Travis Kelce and just looked like he was out of position. But even he can still tackle, and he can still, what he does really well is lead a defense, make the calls that you need to make. And although his play has dropped off, he's not the same player. And, you know, they did right by him. We talked about all that last week. I think in that first game, he was missed. Just from a leadership standpoint, there really wasn't anybody else just taking the reins as the leader. And I think that's really what was missing from the defense. Now, DeForest Buckner spoke up this week and said he's going to be a lot more vocal. So you hope that DeForest Buckner and like Reuben Foster and even the veteran like Elvis Dumervil can establish that leadership in the locker room and on the field. But I think just in that particular game, I think the loss of Bowman was felt.
Yeah, and you being at the game and seeing it up close, you're able to see things that we can't see on TV. From that leadership perspective, you see the mannerisms, the body movements, the way the players are on the sideline in the game after a big play, after a good play, you know, after a bad play. You see who they gravitate to, who they listen to. And I do think the future leadership, but it needs to step up right now. I do think Reuben Foster, I really think he's going to be one of those guys. among Buckner, as you said, he said he's going to step up. He's going to be more vocal, so he's going to be there. I think Foster will be one of those guys. But you're talking about the deficiencies, of Bowman and his liability in the passing game. And you know what? Sometimes you got to weigh the options, because he goes to the Raiders first week out. He leads the team in tackles.
Right.
Well, they know he's got They know he's got deficiency in the passing game, and maybe it still has something to do with his injury. I don't know, but nonetheless, he's a liability, in the passing game. But if you're going to keep him in there, for 3 downs, then you got to figure out a way. How do I devise my game plan? Do I want to go a 4-2-5? Where I got 5 DBs, a nickel back in there, to where you put Bowman in a small area, to where you got less responsibility. They have less of an opportunity to take advantage of him. So, but it is what it is. The 49ers are moving on. He's moving on. I do think the leadership, those young guys will grasp it and hold on to it. I just wish I saw or could see in Reuben Foster right now as a rookie, the leadership that, and we talked about it before, that William Floyd had on a team with Jerry Rice, Steve Young, all those great linemen that we had. He still found a way to exemplify that leadership. So I think Reuben Foster has that ability, and I think he's going to get it done.
Yeah, and I totally agree with that. I do think Reuben Foster has that in him. And the comparison that you made to William Floyd a few weeks ago, I think that's exactly how it is. He's that kind of a guy. He's a fiery guy. He's the kind of guy that can energize a defense. There was that one play with Ezekiel Elliott where he just came right in up the middle and just put a stick on him right away, and he went backwards. It was like watching Ken Norton Jr. hit Emmitt Smith in the championship game. And it's just, you can tell this guy's a gamer. This guy is the future of the franchise from a defensive standpoint. Him and DeForest Buckner are going to be the best 2 guys on that defense, at least from what we can see right now. And I do believe the leadership will come. I just think in that first game against a really good team like the Cowboys, that's where it was lacking. And I do, like I said, I think it'll develop over time. But right now, that's what they're missing a little bit of leadership. So hopefully, some of that can come quicker than not, and we'll see hopefully a little bit of an improvement in the secondary and more of a pass rush against the Eagles on Sunday.
Right. I think the biggest thing is keep the ship upright. It's not going to sink, regardless of how bad the season is. It's not going to sink. So by keeping it, upright and using situations such as you got to use sport examples, whether it's the 49ers and, a team you want to look back and say, hey, before the 49ers became the 49ers, there was, 78, 79, where, things weren't that great. But you know what? Let's take a great deal of pride in being the team that starts setting the pace, the trend for what we want to be. Let's start thinking of ourselves as what we want to be, so we can put together the plan to become what we know we can be. So I think that's what Shanahan is doing. You've got to use those type of situations and examples to move forward, to create light at the end of the tunnel. But I still say when you sit down and you watch film, you break it down, you see what you did bad. But this game, maybe not so much, but so far the majority of the season has shown more light at the end of the tunnel than no light at all. So they have a lot to move for, reasons to move forward and prepare this week and be optimistic. Now, of course, the next game is going to be an extremely tough game, but that's a topic we'll discuss here shortly.
Yeah, you brought up a really good point about the 78 and 79 season. I got friends here in Wisconsin that'll come up to me and ask me how the Niners are doing. They're jabbing me, and it's all in fun. But one thing I always say is you can't get to 1981 without first going through 79 and 80, and that is actually what Kyle Shanahan referred to early in the week. When he was interviewed, he talked about the 79 season, the Bill Walsh's first season, coming off a 2-14 season in 1978. Bill Walsh's 49ers, with Joe Montana on the team as a rookie, they went 2-14, and then they improved to 6-10. And another thing that you said was you got to start behaving the way that start acting like the vision that start acting like the way they want to be in the future. Bill Walsh said many times, champions behave like champions before they're champions. And that is, I believe, what Kyle Shanahan is trying to build in the culture of the 49ers, and I do believe that will happen. It's just very hard to go through the process. It's hard to watch. It's hard to watch when you can see the deficiencies. As we kind of shift into the offensive side of the game, there were real problems on that offensive line. Joe Staley, a guy who's just been a rock on that offensive line for over a decade, just one of the main cornerstones of the offense for during the Harbaugh years, and open up the running game. He's really well on the passing game. He got beat. He got beat repeatedly, and especially on two plays. I think both of the fumbles, for sure, one of the fumbles was directly because he missed a block. Now that's going to happen. Some guys, as they get a little older, it just happens. So, but it's hard to watch. Laken Tomlinson is getting beat. That whole left side right now is a liability, and it's just one of those things they're going to have to work through. They're going to have to try to make adjustments to fix it. I do believe in the off season, the offensive line is going to be a priority. I mean, they've got some areas they got to work through. They got to find a number one corner. Maybe Rashard Robinson will be that guy, but they for sure need another guy on the other side of them, and they need offensive linemen. So there are just areas right now where you can see a team like the Cowboys is going to totally take advantage and shine a giant spotlight on the areas that the 49ers are weak.
And you mentioned all of those areas, and and this areas are noticed by everybody. But just to hit on the offensive line for a second, is whom I think has the toughest job. And Stanley, he's getting a little bit older, but he had played pretty well. I think just sometimes, you got to get defensive lineman credit, because sometimes, hey, you're supposed to take a 3-inch step to your right, you take a 2-inch, and that guy is 1 inch better than you on that play. But it's easy to see why. That's why I always, when I coach, whether it's high school, college, or whatever, I always say, if you're a lineman, you look at film, how to do 3 technique, head up inside, head up, and on this particular play where the ball is going. As a receiver and a DB, always prepare yourself as if the guy crossing you is equally talented, fast, quick as you, which means every single step you practice to take, you better take. And they could adjust some things in the game that throw you off. But in my opinion, that's what happened this week to Stanley is, what? Sometimes that guy's just better. Or Stanley may have taken a step that he shouldn't have taken. And and they compromised, where he needed to be. So, again, all that film, will fix that. And he's not going anywhere. So he's just got to, hopefully he can, he'll fix those things. And I think he's going to come back, and he has to. We need to go better in there. And one thing he's dependent on is that line doing and being where they're supposed to be, because they're trying to develop him as this team develops. So his number one priority that he hopes is in place is that line protecting him. So their focus is going to be good, and I think they're going to come out fighting, although it's an extremely tough game this week, but they're going to come out and they're going to be prepared as, Cal can have them, and they're going to be prepared to fight.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's just one of those things you got to work through. You make a good point. As you get older, you just, sometimes it's a game of inches, and sometimes these things are going to happen, and sometimes you just got to give credit to the defense. I thought Dallas, coming off a bye week, had their back against the wall, and that's why I just didn't feel very confident about a win. I was hoping that they could be in the game. I thought they could do things to be competitive, but let's just face it. Dallas is a potential Super Bowl team. They just are. And I know my buddy Joe is listening, and I wanted to be wrong about this, but this is why I felt this way. I just saw Dallas as getting Sean Lee back, I think, was really big for that defense. They were able to bottle up the run in the big situations that they needed to and get after C.J. Beathard. I thought Beathard looked good at times. When he does play action rollouts, he has this really, really long arc as to where he runs. I think if they can shorten that a little bit, he could get the ball out of there quicker. He just takes a really, really long time to do that play action arc, where actually I thought Hoyer's play action looks a little bit better. It gives you an opportunity to get the ball out quicker. I think that's one of the things they're going to have to do as we switch into the Eagles preview, if they're going to get any type of offense going in this game, because the Eagles got a good defense. Beathard's got to get that ball out of there quicker. They have to run plays where he can get the ball out faster than the defensive lineman can get to him.
Right, and one area that, numerous areas that you mentioned, and I'm going to speak on them, but the one major key that will help him is, one, how to run the ball better.
Yeah.
If you run the ball well, those linebackers and secondary that is trying to get the head start on stopping that play, they throw more to the ball. Now, the arc, if the arc is that much of a problem, Kyle Shanahan would fix that. I'm surprised if the arc was like that in practice, and they probably were touching on it, but they've got to focus on it because, one, it does make a big difference. Even if you run the ball well, you give a quick reaction, then all of a sudden you got a huge arc before you throw the ball. Then it gives the defense time to transition and adjust back to where you're throwing the ball. So
right.
That will be a focal point this week, trying to fix that with him. But the great thing about it is that's why he's in the game playing. That's why you put him in. So those things that you need to fix, get fixed now and not next year when you decide to storm into the game as a starter. So those things are going to be, nitpicked and torn apart and continue to put back and make Dexter new in the way in which Kyle Shanahan wants him to be. So that will happen, and we'll see the difference this week against the Eagles.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very simple game plan this week. If the 49ers are even going to compete in this game, the things that have to happen, they can't have turnovers. They had turnovers against the Cowboys. You can't give a guy like Dak Prescott, or this week a guy like Carson Wentz, who's playing just phenomenal right now, you can't give him short fields. The Eagles are effective when they run the ball. They've got several wide receivers that they can throw to. The worst thing you can do is shoot yourself in the foot and put the ball on the ground, give them a short field. That cannot happen. And then penalties, whether it be on the offensive line or in the defensive secondary. When it's third down, you cannot put your hands on the wide receiver. You can't let that be the reason
right.
that they're moving the chains. If they can minimize those things, and maybe the Eagles have those things, like one or two turnovers, a couple of key penalties that go against them, well, then all of a sudden that can totally swing and keep you in the game.
Yeah, you hit around the head the things that need to be focused on. You can give, and part of what I was going to say is, one, we talked earlier, as a defense, you got to be strong on third downs. You can't allow them to keep driving going and give that offense that's potent the opportunity to have 4 more downs. Offense got to convert on third down. You got to keep driving going and even make play calls where you're taking advantage more of your intermediate and short passing route so you control the time of possession. Have the ball longer than them, but you got to convert on third down. That way you keep the ball out of their hands and you have more opportunities to, make something happen and keep drives going. So I think that's going to be real key in this game is ball control, converting on third down will help that, and then make sure that you put points on the board because the Eagles definitely will.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's going to be really tough to keep Carson Wentz out of the end zone. It's going to be tough to, Torrey Smith is going to be in this game. He's going to be looking to make a play on his old team. Alshon Jeffrey can still make plays. Zach Ertz, you saw the coverage on Jason Witten. I thought there were times where they were dropping Earl Mitchell, the nose tackle, into coverage and asking him to cover Jason Witten, and it was just ugly. They can't put the nose tackle into coverage. Earl Mitchell is just not that guy. Now, I think it's DJ Jones, the other nose tackle. He destroyed Frederick, who's probably the best center in the game, right off the ball to stop Ezekiel Elliott for a loss. I hope that he can get more reps and get in this game, because the loss of Eric Armstead, a big body up front, they've got to get guys like that involved in the game. If Earl Mitchell, DJ Jones, DeForest Buckner, those guys can do what they can to make Carson Wentz one-dimensional, and not give up easy passes to the tight end, because that's where Wentz likes to go. Zach Ertz is killing teams this year, so they can't allow Zach Ertz to do to them what they allowed Jason Witten to do, and they can't give up the big plays. So it's really going to be on the defense to set the tone. It's going to be on the defense to put the offense in a good spot where, you even if you do force a punt, you can't let them get to midfield and pin you back at the 5-yard line all the time. So, and you don't want to have Bethard having to go 90 yards. So it's really going to rest on the defense, and then, if the defense can do its job, then it's up to the offense to just, get some points on the board. But this is going to be a really tough game.
Oh, yes. And I tell you what, that scouting report you see it, and that game plan that you just put together, along with what I said, based on what needed to happen for the 49ers to have a chance in this game, I think you just solidified it. I don't think there's anything else need to be said. Go out, and we don't mind you plagiarizing our game plan, 49ers.
That's right.
Take it, listen to it, implement it. and let's see if it works. But I believe, as you said, that gives them the best chance to have an opportunity to win this ball game. But I think it was just well said on your part.
Well, thank you, sir. I appreciate it. I just hope that that this young defense can make some plays. It would really be the last time that they went to Philadelphia. They were down 23-3. This was Jim Harbaugh's first year. It looked ugly, gruesome, but they fought and they clawed back. The defense forced turnovers, and they were able to get a winning touchdown with a couple minutes left to Frank Gore. It was a really big moment in the Harbaugh's first year. That's the kind of a win. If you can, these can be trap games for teams that are really good, because even if they're taught not to overlook you, in your mind you can overlook a team like this. And so you just never know. Any given Sunday, obviously that's possible, but then you just got to hope that if the Eagles make mistakes, that they can capitalize on it. So that's kind of our take on this game coming up. It's going to be a tough one.
Yeah, yes, definitely. Hey, but before we close out, you got to tell us a little bit about your experience, in Levi Stadium.
Oh yeah.
And the Dwight Clark celebration, and just celebrating him and the person that he is, and and being able to show somebody that you love and care about, what you saw up close from his teammates.
Well, I'm going to first say this. Levi Stadium is a fantastic facility. I've got some really good friends out there. I want to say hi to Mike and Kim, some of the best people I've ever known. These guys put on a tailgate like there's no tomorrow, and they have a friend named Jim who makes the most amazing sausage and brings this big old smoker. This is good tailgating. I live in Wisconsin. We hear all about the Green Bay tailgating, the Kansas City Chiefs tailgating. The 49er fans know how to tailgate. It is fantastic. The stadium was really nice. It's clean. It's decked out. It's a lot of technology. Not everything works all the time, as my friend Joe would say, because he has a little bit of trouble ordering his drinks from his app. So I know that was tough for him, but everything else, the atmosphere was really good, and then the halftime show, the honoring Dwight Clark. They gave away these fantastic T-shirts, and it was really, really good to see Joe Montana, Jerry Rice, Roger Craig, all these guys come out to honor Dwight Clark. He couldn't even make it to the field because of the ALS, and so he's in the press box with Eddie DeBartolo, and it was gut-wrenching. Because he doesn't talk very well right now. Eddie DeBartolo is just tore up over this. You can see the tears in his face. He's been trying so hard. Dwight Clark talked about how Eddie D has been flying him all over the world, took him to Japan to get treatment. He's trying so hard. I mean, we've talked about this on the show, what kind of an owner Eddie D was. Gary Plummer talked about what kind of a man and how much he cares for his team and his players from over the years. You could see this on Sunday, and then he said, I didn't want this to be a day for, to honor me. I just wanted management to fly in my friends and my teammates so I could see them one more time. It was amazing. It was just such a moment for 49er fans, and even some of the older Cowboy fans. The younger ones really didn't understand it. They were kind of just being rude. But the older ones, even though they lost the game in the catch, they understood history and what kind of a man and what kind of a player Dwight Clark was. So it was really something to see.
Right, and although I didn't play on the field with him, he's always a 49er teammate to me. He was in the front office whenever I was there, and I saw him last in March of this year. So I'm glad I got a chance to see him. I was able to get out there for this event, and honored him. But I honor him every day, of my life from a friend perspective. I think about him and wish him the very best. It was great seeing, how the 49er organization came together, led by Eddie DeBartolo, to show a friend, a family member, a teammate, how much they're cared and loved for. And, and I tell you one thing great about Eddie DeBartolo is he did that with all of his players, when he was the, active owner of the team, and still doing it now, still team is still in the family, but he's doing it still, and it just continues to show how great of a man he is and how great of an organization the 49ers are. So it continues to humble me and make me feel proud, to be for the 49ers family.
Yeah, I don't think you could put it any better than that. I mean, that is what you felt. You felt family, and it was very surreal to be a part of it. I wish there was a way I could have just shook hands and just told Dwight what I think of him as well, and I love the sense of family. I love the way the players pull together. It was really cool to see.
That's great. So, wishing him the very best, sending our love to him and his family, and keep him in our prayers daily.
No question about it. ALS is not a fun thing. So, well, 49er faithful, this will conclude another week on the show. I thank you all for listening. I'm glad that let's just stick with it. Let's just keep going. Keep our heads up. This is a difficult season, but hey, that's why they call us the faithful. And we just got to look for things to be optimistic about, and also be readily able to admit the things that they're falling short on. But you know what? I do believe they're on the track to get back to a championship. I do believe in the process and the vision of Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch. So it's just going to be one of those things we're going to have to let this season play out and look for things to be positive. So any final words, my friend?
Hey, stay faithful. You be safe, and till next week, thanks for tuning in.
All right. Well, with that, I'm going to say goodbye for this week. So be with us next week as we break down the Eagles game. So for Dexter Carter, I'm Matt Andruscavage. You've been listening to the 49er Weekly Show on the Grueling Truth Radio Network, where the legends speak.